with increasing competition in the South China Sea, the potential grave consequences of North Korea's nuclear program, the arms race and proxy wars that you see playing out in Yemen and Syria that perhaps stem from Iran's regional aspirations, with Russia, the most complex and capable security challenge we have faced since the Cold War, superimposed on much of it. It would be difficult, I think, on that basis, not to agree with Jim Mattis's assessment. Worrying, though, all of these states have become masters at exploiting the seams between peace and war. What constitutes a weapon in this grey area no longer has to go bang. Energy, cash as bribes, corrupt business practices, cyber attacks, assassination, fake news, propaganda, and indeed military intimidation are all examples of the weapons used to gain advantage in this era of constant competition. There is no longer two clear, distinct states of peace and war. We now have several forms. Indeed, the character of war and peace is different for each of the contexts in which these weapon systems are applied. And the risk we run in not defining this clearly and acting accordingly is that, rather like a chronic contagious disease, it will creep up on us, and our ability to act will be markedly constrained. The arch exponent of this is Russia, as described by the Prime Minister in her Mansion House speech last autumn. I said earlier, I believe it represents the most complex and capable state-based threat to our country since the end of the Cold War. And my fellow chiefs of staff from the United States, France and Germany shared this view at last year's RUSI Land Warfare Conference. Russia, I think, could initiate hostilities sooner than we expect, and a lot earlier than we would in similar circumstances. Most likely, they will use nefarious sub-NATO Article 5 treaty actions to erode the capability of NATO and threaten the very structure that provides our own defence and security. This is the divide and rule which the international order is designed to prevent. We need to prepare ourselves to fight the war we might have to fight. I think it's an important point, because in being prepared to fight the war we might have to fight, there's a sporting chance that we will prevent it from happening. And I think the 100th anniversary of World War I gives us a great chance to actually think about what that war might look like. We need to acknowledge that we have some capability issues that have to be addressed. I think first we have to recognise that deterrence needs a set of graduated responses to enable escalation. And that means that for me, as the CGS, it's important that I recapitalise much of the Army's equipment. I have inevitably looked at this through a land prism, but you should recognise that what I'm describing is part of a joint force. So to conclude, I believe our ability to preempt or respond to these threats will be eroded if we don't match up to them now. They represent a clear and present danger. They are not thousands of miles away. They are now on Europe's doorstep. And the character of warfare is making it much harder for us to recognise true intentions and thus distinguish between what is peace and what is war. Of course, it doesn't have to be like this, but we cannot afford to sit back. We need to recognise that credible deterrence must be underpinned by genuine capability and genuine commitment that earns the respect of potential opponents.